We've got some live coverage now from the NFL media newsroom, a day where suspensions ring out across the National Football League. Patrick Claybon, Steve Wyche here. We start with a guy who's going to the Hall of Fame eventually, Antonio Gates, suspended for 4 games.
Yeah, this was interesting. Again, on a day of suspensions, Antonio Gates, 4 games for violating the performance-enhancing drug policy. Now, according to the policy, that's when a player violates, you take something, be it HGH, a stimulant, or another banned substance based on the 4-game suspension. Antonio Gates came out and said he was taking something for holistic health reasons to sustain his body over the course of the season. We don't know what exactly he has ingested in 4 games for one of the best players, one of the classiest guys most people have ever dealt with in the league. This is a big surprise, potentially big blow. And Patrick, remember, he's in the last year of his contract. This could be the last season he plays in the NFL.
Antonio Gates, 34 years old, climbing in the all-time tight end ranks as far as touchdowns are concerned. From there, we go to a guy on the defensive side, Sheldon Richardson for the New York Jets, a guy who was the Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2013. Now it's 4 games for him in 2015.
Yeah, this is coming off a Pro Bowl season, and Sheldon Richardson, he gets suspended for 4 games for violating the substance abuse policy. Again, different from Gates. His was the PEDs. This is substance abuse. We don't, again, know exactly what happened right here, but one thing about all of these, Patrick, is we're beyond the appeal phase. All these suspensions will hold. He's accepted blame for this. Going to miss the first 4 games. This is one of the most dominant defensive linemen in the NFL, but the Jets just drafted Leonard Williams, a defensive tackle from USC, defensive end, defensive tackle. They do have kind of a backup plan right there, but again, dominant player. Failed the violation. It means he's failed it multiple times. All of these players who are getting suspended for 4 games, that means there's a multiple time violation in terms of the drug policy. So again, this is another one where guys, you know, they say sometimes you have to choose what you want to put in your body.
And so we look at, a lot of people probably don't know, they just see 4-game suspension for violation of policy. But between the Gates suspension, between the Richardson suspension, there's different levels and different things that are in play here.
Well, absolutely, especially because Antonio Gates, his was performance-enhancing drugs. His was, again, it could be a stimulant, something that he buys. HGH is on the list. There's a lot of things on that list. Sheldon Richardson, some other players we're going to mention. This is the substance abuse policy. That means they failed more than 1 drug test, or they did not adhere to the testing procedures, or tried to mask a potential positive drug test right there. So those are the huge differences right there. And the 4 games for the drug policy violation, again, that's multiple failures or multiple non-compliance with the policy.
And another defensive player that falls into that category, the Cowboys' Rolando McClain, one of the candidates for Comeback Player of the Year on the defensive side last year. Now, Steve, he's out for 4 games as well at the start of the year.
He's out for 4 games, and this is interesting because, Patrick, we heard back in February he faced a 4-game fine for drug violations. A lot of times that's a marijuana violation based on the new drug policy. That means there was another violation of this policy to some degree for him to get suspended. Remember, this offseason, he just signed a 1-year deal to come back to Dallas after that fantastic comeback season he had. This is a player who's had multiple transgressions. He's retired several times to come back to play. Seemed like he was getting things back in order. This is a significant step back. The Cowboys won't have Greg Hardy as of right now for 10 games at defensive end. So they're going to have a couple key cogs on their defense that are going to be on the bench to start the season.
And for more on the Cowboys, we're going to go to NFL Media's own Desmond Purnell, who's been covering this team extensively this offseason on the phone. Desmond, they waited for Rolando to actually get back with the team, and now this news comes down today.
Exactly. Huge disappointment for Dallas Cowboys fans. You got Rolando McClain coming off what was a very productive season considering his background, a few retirements. He came back, had 80-plus tackles in 13 games. He is suspended for the first 4 games of the season, will not be back until the team squares off against the New England Patriots during Week 5. And this is a guy throughout the offseason. He wasn't with the team for the majority of the offseason. He stayed back in his home state in Alabama. He was doing some rehab work on his knee. Coaching staff preferred him to be there at Valley Ranch at the practice facility, but he elected to stay back in Alabama, rehab that knee. He didn't come back until mandatory mini camps, and even then he was extremely limited. And you look at what the Cowboys are dealing with at their linebacker position. They no longer have Bruce Carter. They no longer have Justin Durant, 2 linebackers coming off pretty good years. Now they're left with perhaps Anthony Hitchens, who's coming into his 2nd season with the Dallas Cowboys. As a rookie, he was the one who stepped in for Rolando McClain when he got banged up. You have Sean Lee coming back. They've moved him to that outside linebacker position. And talking with defensive coordinator Rod Marinelli, they were very excited about that move. With Rolando McClain in the middle, you have him taking on all those blocks, dealing with those guards and tackles, allowing Sean Lee to roam, be more of a playmaker on the outside. You now have to question how that dynamic is going to work out with McClain missing the first four games of the season.
Desmond, we're very early into this, and we know this punishment just came down, but you know this team pretty well. With some of the things that Rolando McClain has gone through off the field, we've seen the Cowboys have stood by him. Could this potentially be a breaking point where they may have to cut their losses?
Well, the Cowboys are a team that's very well known for giving players second, third chances. You look at Orlando Scandrick, he was a player who was suspended for 4 games last year. Des Bryant, a guy who's been a model citizen as of late. He was someone that the Cowboys have worked with. They feel that they have the culture to help these guys grow and mature on the field and off the field. Rolando McClain, he's a guy that showed a lot of progression last season. We mentioned his history, and he was able to come in and make a huge impact. We'll see, Steve. We'll see if this is enough to make the Cowboys want to, part ways. I mean, considering what they have at the linebacker position, again, you got Anthony Hitchens, someone that can play all 3 linebacker positions. They would really be at a huge loss if they had to part ways with McClain. It's already hurting them for 4 games. It would be a huge loss if they decided to part ways for good.
And Desmond, real quick before we get a chance to go here, do you feel like the issue with Rolando deciding to rehab in Alabama will impact that decision on whether or not the Cowboys choose to continue to try to stay with him?
Again, talking with Jason Garrett during the offseason, he said that he was in constant communication with Rolando McClain. He said he was doing everything he needed to rehab the knee. Jason Garrett said he was pleased with what he saw from McClain once he did rejoin the team. So again, Patrick, only time will tell. Again, the Cowboys seem to be pleased with where he was at the end of mandatory minicamp. We'll see where the Cowboys go from here.
That is NFL Media's Desmond Purnell joining us on the phone on the suspension of Cowboys linebacker Rolando McClain, one of several suspensions in the National Football League today. That's Desmond Purnell. Steve Wyche here with us in the NFL Media Newsroom. Folks, NFL Total Access coming up tonight. Snoop Dogg rolls in to give us his thoughts on the National Football League. That's tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern on NFL Network.